All right, what is up, Goalkeepers Union? Today we're talking about pre-game preparation, covering everything from the actual game day to post-game during the week and the day before. Now, you might say, Michael, why are we starting with the post-game? Well, for me, pre-game starts the second the game ends. And so what does that look like? Well, athletes take good showers. This is a great saying that I love. This will go more for the mental performance side of things, but I love to use the shower as a trigger to move on from the game into the next week. This is a very good sort of neuroplasticity setup that you can use between your body and your mind to say, okay, this game's over. Now we move on to the next. It's a great way to just sort of reset. It's also a great recovery tool, extra hot, get the steam flowing. If you have a hot tub, even great. And if you can get, a spike ball rolling or massage as well, it's really good as well too. Have a post-game meal ready. Eating within a 30 to 60-minute window will optimize recovery. Chocolate milk, protein shake, protein bar, ideally high quality. A lot of protein bars are filled with not the best ingredients. Dates are really good as well, really good carbs. And so it's always best to have this ready, have this in your bag or just however you can, because the last thing you want to do is eat too close to bedtime to where you're disrupting your sleep, because sleep is literally the best recovery tool that you can do. And if you eat too late, it's just going to disrupt the process. You don't want to eat a huge meal right before bed. So having that food or that recovery meal ready to go right after the game is super important. Wait until the next day to review your film. I know it can be tempting to clip a good highlight or to look at a mistake or to go through and just look at everything, but emotions can be high, both good and bad, after a game. And so it's important that we give ourselves some time to reset. There's a great saying, sleep on it. It's famous for a reason. You never want to make a rash or a drastic decision. And particularly, let's say you made a great save and the emotions are high, it's going to help you get really, really high. But then let's say you make a mistake and you watch it and it's going to just come crashing down. So we want to try to avoid that. During the week, what does that look like? This is a really relatively short section. Every team, goalkeeper, coach, goalkeepers are going to have a different routine based on where you're at in your career. So there's not much to talk about here, but ultimately you want to focus on where you can improve from the previous game. And this doesn't just mean things that you did poorly, but things that you did well. Even if you necessarily did it well and you made the save, maybe there's something we could have even done better. Maybe it's a save that we could have held instead of tapping over for a cross. So looking at those learning points, of course, we're preparing for what we're going to face the next week against the next opponent. Optimize your routine. You want to try to have a routine as best as possible. This can be hard in college if you're traveling and getting home late at night, but trying to go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, eating the same foods is super important. And one thing I really want to emphasize, that you do not have to have a good week of training to perform well on a game day. We'll talk about this a little bit more later about this self-fulfilling prophecy, but when we tell ourselves, "Oh, I didn't have a good week of training, I'm not going to play well. I need to have a good week of training." That makes us extremely fragile as athletes to have everything go extremely right in order for us to play well. And I just don't understand this, because games are chaos, the week is chaos, life is chaos, and it's very rarely that things are ever going to go to plan. And so we need to be able to prepare and actually anticipate that things are not going to go well and still be able to perform. So day before, let's talk about nutrition. What you eat the day before is more important than the day of. I don't think a lot of people actually know this, but your game day nutrition is ultimately just damage control and sort of fine tuning what you've done up until that point. But if you eat the right things properly, it will make a huge difference for the day of. And of course, on the other hand, if you don't eat well and you eat really poorly, your body is basically going to be filled with that stuff as you go into the game. So it's not great. Optimize circadian rhythm. We talked about that before, but waking up early in the morning, seeing some sun, getting out there, going for maybe a short walk. Most teams do this anyways, which is great. But again, trying to optimize and keep that consistent is important. Pre-game routine in training, I really like this one because it just helps you feel confident going into the game, focusing on the basics, simplifying the game. I'm going to create a goalkeeping handbook, which really breaks down sort of the main areas of goalkeeping: distribution, shot stopping, and crosses. I don't really know if there's much more else other than that, but really trying to keep the game simple and have tangible things that we can look at and to adjust, or sorry, and to implement. And then thinking 80/20 rule, I did a video about this that, you guys can find on my YouTube channel. The link is here as well. But this is basically looking at, okay, what are the 20% of actions that are going to account for 80% of our actions in a game, right? So if we look at what the modern goalkeepers having to do, it's mostly passing. It's passing and shots. Depending on what league you play in, yes, this will change a bit. Maybe you'll have to take more crosses, but across pretty much any league, passing is going to account for a majority of your actions as a goalkeeper. So it's important that we have a special emphasis on this. A majority of the work that, a majority of work has already been done. These are just the final preparations that will help you optimize your performance on game day. One great training session before the week is not going to overtake, a poor week of training. It's important that we have a very, sort of short-term mindset, but we're playing the long-term game, right? So I think I have that written down somewhere here. At least I thought I did. But yeah, we're just focusing on every single day, day in and day out, building and stacking those days, of course, and then trying to win in the long run. So, what happens when we get to game day? I love this quote here. For me, when it comes time to go, I'm doing everything in my power to surrender to the work I have done and commit to the present. I think as athletes, we want to try to control the way that things go, but ultimately, we just have to let the game happen. And when it comes to game day, we have to trust in our preparation and say, okay, there's nothing else that I can do. What has happened. And now I just have to go out there and let my ability express itself. So I think this is really important to remember. That's why it's at the top here. The invisible opponent, ultimately, this is who you're playing against. It is you versus you. It does not matter who you are playing. I know there's a lot of goalkeepers that they get very nervous about who their opponent is. Maybe they're playing a big striker, a big center back, and that can make them very, very anxious. So again, it is you versus you. It does not matter who you are playing. The ball is trying to go into the net and you are trying to stop it. And as simple as that. We talked about the self-fulfilling prophecy. This goes back towards the idea of who you're playing, the opponent. You say, oh, they have a really tall striker. He's going to score on a header, or they're top of the table. They're going to win. And ultimately, you keep telling yourself this over and over and over again. And ultimately, it ends up fulfilling itself. So I really like this idea of competing to a standard as well, regardless of who you're playing. It does not matter. You have actions that you have to implement. This is Kurt Signetti. If you don't know who he is, he won the national championship with Indiana. They went undefeated, and he has a great video here. Play this quickly for you guys. Hopefully you can hear it. 1 second.
Play to the last play. Fast, physical, relentless. Smart, disciplined, poised. One play at a time. 6 seconds of play. Every play's got a life and a history of its own. Like it's nothing. Not affected by success, not affected by failure. On to the next play. Never satisfied. Playing to a standard, not the circumstances of the game. You're up in the fourth quarter, 52-7. Okay, it's not okay to let up because of the circumstances of the game, because you're playing to a standard. Habits. First you form your habits, then your habits form you.
Great video there from Kurt, and obviously what he's talking about there is extremely applicable, and it works because he won the national championship. So I love there that he's not talking about who they're playing. He's not talking about the conditions, the external circumstances. He's focusing on what he and his team can control. And the last thing here is alter ego. We've talked about this in our mental performance session, but flipping that switch, getting into character, getting into that Superman or whatever your alter ego is, that's going to allow you to perform at your best. Talking about pregame nutrition, I don't like to be so strict with things like this, because then if you say, oh, I missed this, well, now I'm not going to be able to perform. But this is just a general guide. You want to try to have your big meal at least 3 to 4 hours before kickoff to let everything digest. And then 60 to 90 minutes before, you can have a light top off. You want ideally easy digestible carbs, things like honey, dates. Avoid anything high fat, dairy, or anything unfamiliar to your stomach. That's really going to be the biggest thing to avoid, is eating something that your body's not really used to, as that can create the most disruption. And again, you can apply this at halftime as well. I personally love honey. It's a great digestible carb. I feel really good using it. So I always like to keep little, honey sticks in my bag during halftime. If you're old enough to drink caffeine, if you drink caffeine, 15 to 30 minutes before is ultimately optimization to let the caffeine sort of do its thing. Coffee or caffeine gum is ideal. I'm not a big fan of Red Bull or any energy drinks, as that's filled with a lot of sugar and not the best stuff. Staying hydrated, urine should ideally be pale yellow throughout the day. What's really cool is as well, you can hydrate through your foods, not just liquids. So focusing on foods that, have some sodium, help you retain the water, and will help hydrate your muscles, your body, everything. Now, to close it off, I really like this topic, and this is something that I've been implementing recently in my career, is that not every warm up has to be the same. I've worked with coaches and goalkeepers that the game warm up is exactly the same every single time. And I think this is actually setting us up for failure because one, the game is never the same, the opponent's never the same, the way you're feeling is never the same. So ultimately, why does the warm up have to be the same? We need to be able to adjust to the field, adjust to the weather. If you're playing on grass fields, we all know that each grass field is unique, it's different. And even turf fields, each turf is different. And so dealing with the circumstances of the fields and being able to adjust it. If it's a windy day, maybe you take more crosses. If it's a rough dirt field, maybe you deal with more passes or you deal with dipping balls and you deal with, what you're going to have to deal with in the game. So I really like this idea of, warming up based on what you feel you need. You shouldn't take 10 volleys because someone told you have to take 10 volleys. Take as many volleys as you feel is good. And then you move on. Again, adjust based on opponent. I don't like to, be too much, as we talked about the self-fulfilling prophecy, but if you're facing an opponent who likes to shoot from everywhere, see more shots in the warm-up. If you're going to have to play more with your feet, play more with your feet in the warm-up. This will help you feel prepared even more going into the game. And again, as we talked about during the week, your warm-up does not have to be perfect for you to have a good game. I know so many goalkeepers who they say, I have to have a good warm-up, I have to have a good warm-up, I have to have a good warm-up. And ultimately, this is just not the case. I'm sure we've all had moments where we've had not such a great warm up, and then we go out and have an amazing game or play better than we could have ever imagined. But this idea that if your warm up doesn't go well, then you don't feel like you're going to have a good game, it's just setting yourself up for failure. So you should be making mistakes in the warm up. You should be having to make decisions. This idea that it's just volley, dive, everything's scripted and consistent, it's just not realistic because that's not the way that the game goes. So anything that's highlighted here, I would say that's sort of my main focus from this presentation. I think these are unique aspects that I don't see a lot of people talking about, and it's something that I hope you guys can all benefit in your pregame preparation. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below. Like, subscribe. Thanks to everyone that was in here, and we will see you guys on the next one.